Thank you so much for letting me borrow that portion of the board, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Cool. I just want to take 1 minute to put my notes back on here. Okay, I'm ready. I got a little bit of text up there. That'll help during the presentation. So before I get started in the actual presentation, I had a pre-thought that I wanted to share with you, and it comes in the form of a question. So Drew's first kind of like pre-lesson kind of ties extremely into it, where I had a thought about, we're talking a lot about presenting and presenting well, and we're talking a lot about adding value to people's lives. And I was thinking, and I'm like, well, what happens if you have something very valuable and it's very important, and it works and it's true and it's going to change your life, but you present it poorly, or that it's presented to you poorly? Like, what if that general gets up there and he does shake his butt and people kind of laugh at him, and what if in the first 15 minutes he screws up his first entrance, but deep down he's a very smart and a very wise general, and his value is there, but his presentation isn't? How do I skip over and not be dependent on presentation and get straight to the value? Because that's what I care most about. That's my pre-thought, is how do I not become so dependent on other people's presentation, which I'm not in charge of? How do I find the value? How do I find the value in people who don't present themselves well, but I can see something in their potential that they're not presenting? How do I find that value? So that's kind of my pre-thought that I would love to have conversations about, that I would love to discover, right? So anyway, that's just a small thought of something I've been thinking about with all this talk and presentation. So on Sunday, I went over to my dad's house, and I was helping my little sister. That's the rule. So on Sunday, I go over and I help my little sister with her math problem. She's 13 years old, really cute. Abby Allred, cutest 13-year-old girl that you'll ever see. She's in algebra, where I'm helping her with some basic math. So just very basically, what's the difference between 70% and 80%? 10%, right? What's the difference between 80% and 90%? 10%. 10%. Right. Basic algebra. Kyle can teach my little sister algebra, help her out, right? Really cute. She'll go get a snow cone with you, right? Favorite snow cone.
Give her 5 years.
Really awesome. What's the difference between 90% and 100%?
That was a trick question.
That's what I thought. Right? That's what I thought. I thought the difference between 90% and 10%, and I thought the difference between 90% and 100% was 10%, until I learned this lesson. And I didn't learn it until I was 27 years old. I'm 29 now. The majority of my life, I didn't learn this lesson, but I learned it when I was 27, and it's added value to my life. Now, it's not one of those things that's changed my life completely, but maybe it's one of those things that's added 5% of value to my life. Every year of my life, it's added 5% of value, right? And so 5%, I did a triathlon race last year. If I would have been 5% faster on the swim part, I would have moved from 6th place to 3rd place. And the only difference there was on the swim part, 5%, right? So what I'm going to teach you, it's not going to revolutionize your life, but it's going to add maybe 5%, right? But every year of Bree's life, because she's going to learn this lesson, it's going to add 5% this year. And then it's going to add 5% next year. And then the Skylar, 5 years from now, he'll have all these 5% added up. So it's going to make a long-term difference, right? And here's my promise to each of you, right? Here's my promise to Kyle. You're going to learn everything about the finishing point in this session, and you won't ever have to read another book about it. You won't ever have to think about it. Everything you need to know about the finishing point, you're going to learn in the next 15 minutes. Why? Because it's simple. It's very, very simple. So back in the day, Christopher Columbus, 1492, he does what?
Sails the ocean blue.
Sails the ocean blue, right? He discovers America. He comes back. He's a hero. We want Christopher Columbus to come to our parties. Tell us about the Americas. Tell us about the Indians. Tell us about the gold that you discovered and the wealth that's there. give us the story, right? So they invite him to a big dinner party. And there's nobles there, and there's kings there, and they all have little cool Aztec, whatever, like goatees, like penguin guys, right? Right? They're speaking Spanish, they all have like this little list, right? Everyone's having a good time. Christopher Columbus, according to the historians, he gets put on the spot, and they're like, Christopher, anybody in Spain, like we have the most skilled map makers, and we have the most skilled and brave explorers, and we have the wealth. If you wouldn't have discovered America, somebody from Spain would have. And they're kind of trying to discredit him. And so what he does is they're at a dinner party, and he takes a hard-boiled egg, and he grabs it, and he says, I want you to take this egg, this little white, round, soft egg, and I want you to stand it up on its top. But you can't use anything to hold it. You can't lean it against the mashed potatoes. You can't lean it against your fork. You just got to take it like you would this pen and stand it upright. So they take it, and they try to stand it up, but it falls over, right? It's an egg. You can't stand an egg up on its top. And so what he does is he takes the egg, and he taps it. And everybody in that room immediately knew how to make an egg stand up. And for the rest of their lives, they would know how to make this egg stand up. And so the point was that the lesson that he taught, discovering America, it was so simple after someone had done it, right? It was so simple. Anybody could do it. Anyone can solve that problem after you show it to you. And that's what the finishing point is. I'm going to show you something that's so simple that anybody in this room can understand it. They're going to be able to teach it. They're going to be able to take it with them from this session, right? So there's 3 benefits that I've gotten from the finishing point. The first one is when Brighton Jones learns the finishing point, it's going to simplify his life. It's going to make his life more simple and more easy to focus on the projects and the things that matter most. For Skylar Jones, the finishing point is going to give him more time. He has a wife. He's got 2 little twins. He's got a little son that has crazy red hair that runs around, who's learning Chinese. He's busy. He works hard. This is going to give him more time. For Daniel, this is going to take away stress from Daniel's life. Daniel works hard. Work is always on his mind. His family, he wants to get things done. He wants to present value. This is going to take away stress from Daniel's life. And it's going to do the same for Jackie. Jackie's going to have the same benefits. And Bree's going to have the same benefits. And it's all from the finishing point, and it's so simple, and it's so easy. And once I discovered this when I was 27, I'm like, yes, this is a tool that I can take with me always, because it's so simple. I put it in my mind, and I've got it, right? So I want to tell you a story. So I raced Ironman competitions, right? There's a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, a 26.2-mile run. At the end of the day, you'll have gone 140.6 miles. So last year I'm in Kentucky, right? The Kentucky Derby, they race horses, the Louisville Slugger, they make the baseball bats there that are the finest baseball bats in the history of baseball, right? And I was there in Louisville, right? Racing Ironman competition. There's 3,000 athletes, there's 6,000 fans, and this place has just exploded because there's so much energy from all these people who are going to travel 140.6 miles swimming, biking, and running. They show a pre-race video, and a lady gets up there and she's telling her story about 2012 when she tried to race the Ironman. She had done the 2.4-mile swim, she had biked 112 miles, and she had ran 26 miles. And she could see the finish line. And she could see the blue carpet, and she could hear the crowd, but her body was hurting her. Her muscles were cramping up. Tears were forming in her eyes, and she had to sit down and be escorted into an ambulance because she couldn't go the last 22 miles, right? And we can say, you made it so far. You went 99.8% of the distance, right? I mean, she works hard. She doesn't have time to train for another one. She's got all these expenses. She's got to fly back from Washington or California or wherever she was. Let's just give her an Ironman award, right? As much as we love her, we can't do that, right? How come?
She didn't finish.
She didn't finish, right? And that's interesting, right? Here's another scenario. Let's say a man comes up to Skylar or Rob to be interviewed, and there's two people, right? Two people come up to be interviewed. One of them says, I have a bachelor's degree in something that Rob needs, right? Whatever you want, Rob.
Chemistry.
I'll have it, right? So a bachelor's degree is 120 credits, we'll just say, right? Basic bachelor's degree, any college, 120 credits. Another person comes up and they have 117 credits. They don't have the bachelor's degree, and they come up to Rob and they're like, Rob, the only thing I'm missing is 3 credits and it's a PE class. Right? 3 credits in a PE class. Generally, what's going to happen? Generally, who's going to get the job? The guy with the bachelor's degree. I mean, really, is that PE class going to make a difference? No, it's not going to make that big of a difference. But there's a big gap between 117 and 120, right? There's something different there. The difference between 90% and 100%, it isn't 10%. The difference between going 140.4 and 140.6, the difference is 100%, right? That lady went 99.8% of the way, but she didn't finish it, so she got 0% of the Ironman award. She got 0% of the finisher medal. She got 0% of the pride of finishing an Ironman. Why? She went 99.8% of it. She did most of it, but she didn't finish it, right? And that's what the finishing point is, right? The finishing point is realizing that if you don't complete a project, the gap between 90% and 100% is at minimum 10% and at maximum 100%, right? If you get 95% of your presentation and you finish your homework, it's ready to turn in, and you don't turn it in, all you're missing is that 1%. The difference is 100%. You don't get any credit for that. You get 0 credit for that, right? And so that's what I realized, that there's a lot of value in doing that last 10%. And I'm sure each of us has little projects that come up and we don't finish them. Different projects come up and we don't finish them. But understanding the value of the finishing point helps us to understand that if we only are prepared to go 90% of the way, we might not get any of the credit for it. But it's still going to take our time, and it's still going to take our effort, but we don't get any results from it, right? We get 0 results, and I don't like that. I don't like that. So here's the 3 costs of not finishing, right? Number 1 is the time it takes to not finish. Every project you have that you don't finish and you wait, you got to go back and you got to review what you have to do to finish that project. So it takes time just to get yourself reoriented with that project. It's gonna take you more time. The second thing that it does, and these are all going to relate, is it gives you more stress. How much stress do you think this lady had? For years it bugged her. She couldn't go back and finish that race for 6 years, and then she finally went back and finished it when I was there. And it was awesome, but you know what? It was kind of eating away at her for 6 years. It was stress. Daniel made a comment the other day. He's watching a movie. What movie are you watching? Or what series are you watching?
Oh, Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, right? How far along in the series are you?
There's 2 episodes left.
What is it doing to you?
It's killing me. I just
It's
want it to be
killing
over.
you, right? And what do you want to do?
I want it to be over.
Once it's over, is that going to happen?
I hope so. If they end it the right way.
Right? Less stress. Having open projects, it brings more stress in your life, right? If Brian comes up to Jackie and he's like, Jackie, how's that report coming? And she's like, oh, it's not done. All of a sudden she has this stress. And it's different from, you know what, I have it up to a point. I can present it now. It may not be the exact place where I'm at, but I have all the materials there, I can present it to you. That's a lot better feeling, right? The last part, the cost of not finishing, you don't get results for not finishing. You don't get results, but you still get the cost of time, and you still get the cost of effort, and you still get the responsibility, but you don't get the results. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating to be in a relationship where you're putting in time and you're putting in work, but you're not getting results, right? That's all frustrating. And so, one, the finishing point, everybody knows, like, oh, it's better to finish a project than to leave it open. But sometimes we're not aware that if we're 90% of the way done, it's just as good as 0%, right? If you get all the way up to your degree and you don't finish that last part, it's the end of the race where people win, right? It's that last push where all this value comes. For some reason, within this little time span, 100% of the value can actually come there, right? And so the finishing point is the exit point of a project or a goal. Oh wait, let's see. Sorry, I got these words a little mixed up. That's different from my text. So, the finishing point of a project or a goal is the point where you can take away measurable value. And that's the point that we want to do. So in my last Ironman race, my goal was to do sub 10. 2 months before, I sprained my ankle and I couldn't run anymore. And I knew that I wasn't going to be doing sub 10. My goal was to finish, right? Here's my chief goal, number 1 goal. This is my original finishing point. Finish an Ironman in 10 hours. I sprained my ankle, had to be on crutches for 2 weeks, couldn't run. There's no way I could meet that goal. I changed my finishing point to something measurable, and I just wanted to finish, right? Hurt ankle, I knew I could swim, I knew I could bike, I just needed to finish on the run. My ankle's all swollen, really painful. But I created a new goal, right? So there's different times in your life when you're gonna have like this really awesome goal, right? And it's like, whoa, all of a sudden Tim wants to grow out this big fro, right? That's his goal, his finishing point, right? But then he realizes, he's like, man, that's gonna take too long, my girlfriend doesn't like it, like stuff gets caught in there. So I'm gonna grow it an inch, right? I'm gonna grow a measurable distance. I just want 1 more inch there, right? Or maybe when Dusty is working on a web page, he's got this grand idea to build this fascinating web page and it has all these parts in there. And he just gets so overwhelmed with it, he's like, I don't even have a finished measurable product in there. The value that I put into this website is 0 because I'm 50% of the way there and there's nothing, right? But once he understands the value of the finishing point, he's going to make a goal where he can take a measurable result. Does that make sense? Is that kind of, you're nodding your head, does that make sense? Finishing point. Right. So that's it. I mean, it's super simple. I mean, it's nothing nobody here has heard. But I mean, it's something fascinating because once you understand this, you understand that, hey, I've put in 90% of this project. I have to finish it to get the value out of it. Or if you decide like, whoa, I'm not going to be able to achieve my chief aim. What's my exit strategy? What's a way that I can cross this off my list and feel like, hey, you know what? I did my best. This is a finished product that I can show to Rob, that I can ship to my wife, that I can ship to whatever it needs to be, right? So it's arriving at that place where maybe you finish your goal, but if not, where's the measurable value that you could ship and give out to someone, right? In business, they call it minimum viable product, right? So just think about that for your life and your goals. So everyone, I want you to do 2 things. Now that you understand what the finishing point is, I want you to first write something historical. What's a moment in your life when you think back that you can see where the finishing point is relative to it? How does it apply to something in your past? Where you wish, man, I should have finished that project. This is something that I started and I didn't get value from it because I didn't finish. So I want you to write something like that. Right? Okay, and then the second thing I want you to write is in the future. There's all projects that we have that are open-ended. There's certain projects that we want to do. There's certain skills that we want to learn. What are some finishing points for that project? What's your chief finishing point? Your master goal, 10 hours for an Ironman. And what are some exit strategies? are some finishing point areas where if you don't achieve that main goal, you can still finish the project and ship it, a measurable value. So something in the future there. So that's the finishing point, right? A lesson I learned when I was 27. Right, the finishing point. Thank you.